Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today is, as always, a man here who is walking around the world, Epcot anyway, the World Showcase, Logan Stunt.
Oh man, it's been a lot of walking. I think I got 20,000 steps in on Saturday, so that's a lot of walking.
Logan's feet, by the way, relayed this message.
You can't keep getting away with it! He can't keep getting away with it! He won't.
He won't.
He won't. Yeah, but he did. Yeah, the whole weekend, it sounds like you were all over the place.
All over. Universal Studios, Animal Kingdom, the magic of living in Orlando. So, what was your weekend like?
Nice.
I guess I didn't ask you. How was your weekend, Jordan?
No, you didn't bother to ask me offline.
I just wanted to save the surprise.
Yeah, it was fine. Taking care of my wife who had a pretty standard procedure done, so just making sure she's good, the dogs are good. Something I was thinking about though is this will be, I think, the first time ever, Logan, by the way, this week, like the past week, it's the first time I think I've recorded every single podcast I do except for one. And that was, I didn't record Behind the Dreams this week, but I recorded a podcast for all of my podcasts. Closed Pyramid yesterday. We're doing Ted Lasso soon. We got this show. I did Pod Awakens for Celebration news. I did DC stuff, and I did Marvel stuff for the trailers. So I was pretty busy in that regards. But yeah, I think that's the first time ever I've done that many.
If you want, I mean, we can do a live stream on Thursday to welcome back annual passes, and then you'll have you'll have the gauntlet. It'll be like
I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for Jack to finish school, and then we're supposed to do some record quite a few Behind the Dreams, so that way we kind of got it stacked up for a bit. But yeah, I guess we'll see. So there you go, people. If you didn't know that I do that many podcasts, there you go. I made this meme here for my Star Wars podcast. Somehow the Pod Awakens returned. We had some time off there, so bringing it back. But yeah, MLS wise, I watched the games on Saturday. Pretty much what it was is I was off Friday, came home, recorded like 3 podcasts on Friday, and then did editing on Friday and Saturday. Saturday, I didn't have to record anything then. It was just all editing, making sure that was all done in time for the MLS matches. This is where the perks come in of them starting at 7:30. I was like, oh my God, I got so much time to get all my other ducks in a row before the games start. And then watching those until the Apple MLS season pass broke at a certain time. And then getting frustrated with that. And then Sunday, making sure I had everything done in time for El Trafico. Got a chance to watch that, and then, finish my taxes and all that good stuff. So that was my weekend.
Taxes are kind of fun, right? I mean, that was the highlight of your weekend from what it sounds like. So
yeah, it was. It was the highlight of my weekend.
Well, that's exciting. No, you had a good weekend though. Go follow all of Jordan's podcast because I mean he doesn't have as good a guest.
Nobody else does.
Right. So technically, I'm the best co-host that there is. So
I do have co-hosts now though. So I love them all equally.
No, you don't.
All right, let's talk some MLS action here. So we have. I wrote down some topics, all right, and I put it in our shared notes. So if you want to pull them up, you can kind of get a head start on those, I guess. But I just wrote down these topics while I was thinking today of the season, I kind of want to do something a little different than what we usually do. We'll still talk about the results that happen and stuff, but I kind of want to pose this question to you, I guess, right off the bat here as we look at the standings. And that is, which teams are already out on the Supporter Shield? Because the reason this came up is because as a Union fan, I've seen in a lot of our circles where our Union fans have pretty much said, we're already done. Like, we can't get the Supporter Shield. We have to focus on CCL and then try to get a home playoff game and then try to win MLS Cup is kind of their thinking. So when I look at it, right, there is a 9-point gap from 10th place to first place. 10th place in the East being no playoff spot. First place being a Supporter Shield challenger, because New England and Cincinnati are only 1 point off of our surprise St. Louis, who is leading the Supporter Shield charge right now. So, Logan, where is the line right now? That just makes me think of the Office episode with the sexual harassment video. Where is the line, Jan? Where is the line where you would cut off and say these teams are no longer in the hunt for the Supporter Shield? Because by my estimation, I'll just tell you where I'm kind of thinking. And part of it is not going to just be points based. I think part of it is going to be, do I think that team can actually do it? And I think I have to cut my Supporter Shield chances off at 6th place in the East. Nashville down, I don't think are possible to win a Supporter Shield. I can see NYCFC making a run. I can see Columbus making a run. Atlanta, Cincinnati, New England. But, and there's probably more challengers in the West, obviously. So, but just let's focus on the East right now. If we're looking at the East, who are reasonable challengers for the Supporter Shield as we are now 8 weeks in, which is what, like a quarter of the way through the season?
Yeah, so we're almost to a fifth. Yeah, I think we're almost to a fifth because there's 34 matches in a season. So once we
so that doesn't divide by 8. So closer to a fourth than to a fifth.
Yeah. So no, I mean, if you're talking about like logistically, as far as, I mean, I guess teams that could win that I could see in the Eastern Conference, like you said, I mean, I could see. I mean, honestly, I'd go a spot above you and say NYCFC, only because I just don't think Nashville scores enough. They're one of the weakest teams as far as points.
Well, that's what I meant. Played. Sorry.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is Nashville down, no chance.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
NYCFC up has a chance. Sorry.
Okay, then. Yeah, no. Then I would say that I agree with you in that sense, because I feel like NYCFC are a club that could definitely add in the summer a player or two, and they've got the funds to do so. And I think they're not a horrible team. I think defensively they've gotten a little bit better. I think in the attack there's still a lot to be desired. They've only scored 9 goals. So and you kind of look at the top of the Eastern Conference, and you've got Columbus with 18, you've got Atlanta with 16, New England with 13, but yeah, I would say that that line stops there. I would say NYCFC, Columbus, Atlanta, Cincinnati, and New England. The longer that New England play, the longer I think that they're kind of proving me wrong. I felt like they weren't that sharp to be a number 1 team, and they haven't really played the schedule that I thought warranted them.
Did you hear what they say every match in the locker room before they go out there?
I hope we win.
They say, let's prove Logan Stump wrong.
They've got me framed somewhere, I think. The laminators are out.
You laminated.
We're warm.
Got you laminated. They're like, see this guy here?
Yeah.
The stateside soccer guys? We got to prove them wrong.
100%. But, I mean, we'll kind of talk about the results of Cincinnati, I'm assuming. So the results of Cincinnati and St. Louis were massive, having big implications, I think, on the top of that Supporter Shield run. But again, I think realistically, Jordan, I think that the Supporter Shield lies within the West, but I would say the Eastern Conference. I think Cincinnati will give it a really good run. New England, and people are sleeping on Atlanta. If they can keep Thiago Almada for the season, which I don't know if that's likely, but with Yakamaki scoring like he is, with their defense, not letting in as many goals as they score is good. They could tighten up a little bit, but they've had some bad results that I think add to that big goal total. So,
yeah, I think Yakimakis has scored in four
straight
games,
matches,
games or something. 4 goals.
Yeah, he's only the 7th player in history, in MLS history, to score in his first 4 starts. So that's nuts. Like, that's really hard to do in this league as a newcomer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because they didn't really start him as starting, right? Like when he first came in,
he wasn't
he come
fit
off the bench
or something. Yeah,
maybe that's what they should always do.
I mean, it worked well for him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he would have hit the ground running anyway if he was fit. But my point just being like, if you can kind of get minutes without it being like you're starting, like maybe it would work better for some of these teams. But
out of those 5. Like, out of those 5, who do you think? I mean, I guess Cincinnati wouldn't be the big sleeper pick, but I guess out of those 5, excluding Cincinnati, so let's go for New England, Atlanta, Columbus, and NYCFC. I mean, nobody was picking those 3 to win a Supporter Shield, but which one do you think has the better shot at doing so?
Columbus.
You think so?
Yeah, and that might just be they've really been good recently, right? They, and the reason I say that, right, is it now, of course, I think New England fans might get upset, I guess, but for Columbus, they've scored 18. They've only given up 9. Like, I feel like that's a really strong, and 4 of those, by the way, was week 1 against the Union. If you take away 4 goals of those 9, they've only given up 5 since week 1. That's pretty good. So I would say, I feel pretty good about the Columbus having a shot. Now, it doesn't mean they'll win it, but I guess realistically you could say New England. But if I'm going to go like dark horse, I'm going to go with Columbus here. That could conceivably win the East or, wins a Supporter Shield if they keep up their current pace. Now, there are some games where they look bad. There are some games where they look great. But they only have 2 losses. So, I know, New England, Cincy, and Atlanta only have 1 loss. But again, what stands out to me is goals scored, goals against. Like, Atlanta has 16 goals. They give up 12. 18 scored is the most in the East. And 9 is like second most in those top 4. Right? Or the second least in the top 4 of the East. So I feel pretty good about where Columbus is right now. And again, it may not play out that way, but I would feel pretty damn good if they do a good showing like this and then they go into year 2 with Nancy, right? Like, that is okay. They might be really freaking special next year if they keep going the way they're going.
And they've got one of the most lethal attacks when you add Cucho back to the mix, who's been hurt, and then you've got Christian Ramirez, you've got Darlington Nagbe, who's played well. You've got guys like Lucas Celerón. You've got that guys that I think ultimately as far as like competitive and top of the table or top of the list kind of talent, which you kind of need. I think they've got it all. And the one thing that I think separates them from really good clubs is just the fact that they have goal scorers, right? Because we've seen instances where Cincinnati is going to lose attacking players. We've seen New England struggle at times because Carlos Gil is the only person that can kind of create those goal chances at times. So it is interesting. You kind of look at this club in Columbus and go, man, they've got options everywhere on the wings, down the middle, in the in the midfield that kind of lie back there, and then their defense has been pretty good.
You know what this says? If I'm objective, Logan, I think what this tells me, and we can be wrong, right? Because Columbus won the MLS Cup and then they like immediately plummeted, right? So when they were expected to be good. So next year they could be really bad as well, whatever. What I'm thinking here is there's a chance that the Union have lost their chance at MLS window. The curtain might be closed, right? Because when I'm looking at the into next year, and we're thinking about how good Atlanta looks, right? And then with Lagerway at the top of that, that's formidable in the East. Columbus and Wilfred Nancy run it back again next year, and they bring in more pieces to help. That's a strong team. Cincinnati, they're more of a question mark for me, because if Brenner and Vasquez leave in the summer, then I think they might fall a bit lower. New England, if they, like, where do the Union slot in this? If Orlando ever finally gets it under their feet, right? That if Toronto has 2 star players, if they get it running, right, it's like, okay, where does the Union stand going forward then? Because this was a team that has been the strongest in the East for like the last 3 years or so, that have been consistent and good, but it seems like they're falling short of that this year. So going forward, I look at it and think, their window might be closed. And what we're seeing open is another Columbus window, Atlanta, Cincy, New England. And I'm not trying to just be reactionary to these top 4 teams right now, but, the only game Atlanta looked really bad in was when they didn't have Almada or some of their players due to international dude, and Columbus that beat them. So I do feel good about picking Columbus as the best out of those 4. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Just as like, is the curtain closing on some of these teams' windows?
I mean, I think you make a really good point in the fact that Philadelphia, because I think you look at Daniel Gazdag, who, in my mind, if you're a European team, that would be interest of a player that caliber. You always see Kai Wagner. Like I thought he was going to be gone this summer. He wasn't, but I could totally see him being somebody that's plucked off the team. You look at an aging Andre Blake, and I don't think Blake would ever go anywhere until it was his time to just kind of go back to where he wants to play in a home country. Maybe he's from Jamaica, correct? I don't know if he'd ever go back and kind of finish out, because you don't really hear about that often, them going back to the islands to play. But then again, he could say, hey, I just want to move on and go somewhere else and kind of spend my last couple of years playing somewhere else. Bedoya is getting older, so I would say, yeah, I mean, I would say their curtain's closing on what was a really good Union team, and their defense has been awful this year compared to what they were last year, playing at a historic rate. Looking at the Red Bull, that's a lot of trouble. That's some dicey area that they're playing with. I would say that a team that we all thought Jordan was going to be on the rise, that could be a 2nd or 3rd team in the East, they don't look anything like themselves. So I think we should
probably talk about that too, because Stuber, was asked again about the Van Zier comments, which we kind of accurately predicted would not go over well, right? And what I mean by that is it was 6 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
People think that's too, but we pointed out that some people got in trouble for homophobic slurs. That was 2 games. Actually, last year, another player got in trouble with that. It was 3 games.
Right.
So precedence has changed in the past, but it also became this thing where some people thought 6 was too low. And then you have where you're looking at it and you're like, well, again, people like, how do we judge this compared to other minority slurs that people are using? And that became a problem. And then you had like Stuber was not listening to his players, right? About wanting Van Zier to get off the team. Van Zier is like taking time away, apparently. Got a fine and like 6-game suspension. Some people want him off the team. The fans were, protesting at the game. You wouldn't know because nobody really shows up to their team anyway. So like the empty stands is pretty normal, but like they had signs, saying a whole bunch of stuff. So Red Bull's in a very bad spot. And you're right. We kind of thought this would be a team on the rise. I saw some MLS people or people that cover the league had them as supporter shield favorites at one point. And I was baffled by that then. I thought they'd be good, like a top 4 again, but I didn't think they'd be like the best.
Right.
And just the fact that NYCFC is consistent again and up there while Red Bulls are. I mean, Red Bull is in this spot, Logan, where I'm like, Red Bulls have to like crap or get off the pot. What I mean by that is the brand Red Bulls have to either actually put money into the team or they have to sell it and get somebody else in there, because it's embarrassing that they can't draw crowds. It's embarrassing that how they handled this whole situation with Venzier. It's embarrassing that they're just a feeder club at this point. This is New York City, right? Or even if you want to say they play in Harrison, their market where their TV rights are and, or was, and the radio rights are, is all in New York. That's the market they're pitching to. And they're losing that market to NYCFC. And it's almost like we're going to talk about it with LA too. These teams that have gotten these cities that have gotten their secondary team from big money investors that have taken over their market in such a short time. And NYCFC is an example of that. They came in, they spent money at first, they won, they were winners, and then they move on from their stars and kind of also in this weird spot, but they're building a stadium. It's going to be in Queens. It is going to be in the heart of, one of the 5 boroughs, and they're going to have probably a lot more accessibility. It's like right next to Citi Field. They could probably take better public transport than Red Bull Stadium and all that stuff. So just in a really bad spot overall. I don't feel good about them at all.
Yeah, they just don't score. I mean, 6 goals. They defend well. Like, that's always kind of been their thing. They've always had a decent average or really good defense. So it's never been a question of can they defend. And then their DP signing, their big goal scorer who's supposed to provide for this team, has caused more ripple effect of negativity than he has any kind of positivity. And I think the longer that he sticks around with the club with Vanzier, I mean, you've got this headache of just, when's the next one going to drop, right? And you've got teammates that are African-American players that I'm pretty sure that doesn't sit well with them, that he's willing to use that kind of language. And then his apology was just atrocious. It was basically like, yeah, I guess I should do that. I guess I shouldn't use that word. It was more of that kind of.
It was like I didn't know what the word was. Like, I don't know. It was kind of weird.
It was a really odd apology. And then who was it again? It was against it was Abovasi, right? It was San Jose. So San Jose releases a statement that was basically like, we condemn the way that they've handled this situation, and we're not appreciative of the handling of it by the club with New York.
I like that too. I like that. Yeah. This is single entity, by the way, people. So this is something that easily probably could have been swept under the rug by all teams, but I like San Jose sticking up for their guy. I like San Jose putting something out there in the public after all this stuff came out that pretty much disagreed with it, because not something we're used to seeing with some of these MLS single entity type clubs.
No, they usually cower away, especially, I mean, clubs the size of like an NYCFC, I could see them brushing that under the rug. But I'm glad that the media market team, that the team that doesn't really kind of get some of the spotlight, absolutely shine in this moment. And it doesn't have any, there's no room for that. There's no room for homophobia. There's no room for any of that stuff. But we continue to keep getting the same kind of story, unfortunately. And
Logan, that is a perfect example. You said NYCFC, and I know you meant that they could sweep that under the rug, but when we're talking about what NYCFC literally swept under the rug was the David Villa accusations of sexual harassment, and none of the other teams stood up about that at all, right? That's the kind of stuff that usually happens in this, and I'm glad San Jose didn't let it. Yeah,
but I mean, talk about a lot of disappointing teams in the East, man. I mean, up and down the list, I would say that you got teams like Inter Miami, and yes, I know that Gregory gets hurt, and that's a massive loss. But
One
they've
player
just been
cannot be that.
right.
You cannot let one
Right.
player do that to you. You
Yeah.
can't.
And Montreal had a lot of turnover, and they're just awful too. So
I was going to say, this was the prestige matchup of the weekend that you had to pay for, was Montreal and DC, and DC won that game. So Montreal now, that was only their second game at home. Makes the Union loss there look really bad. If DC's getting a victory from there, and DC going against Lasada, and Lasada losing to DC, that's such a fun result. Sorry if you're a Montreal fan, probably not fun for you. But I mean, look, some of these teams in the East again were like Union were 2-0 down, right? Minnesota had the lead against Orlando. Some of our teams, Logan, were like at a certain point, we're like, I don't know if both these teams are going to win this game. Now, Orlando came back and won. Philly came back and drew in the span of like 3 minutes. But just absolutely crazy how the East is right now. Because what you also have is the East had all these crazy like close-ish games, and then the West you have the blowouts like St. Louis over Cincinnati and San Jose over KC, Portland over Seattle, just absolutely battering teams. Just some fun results there, I guess. But Columbus, New England, which was one of our picks for game of the week. Columbus came back and drew that game pretty in that one at Columbus. But it's been a weird season so far. I feel like I can't get a good vibe on anything. So if we go to the West now and talk about teams that we conceivably can see as Supporter Shield, I think my number is actually higher in this. And what I mean by that is conceivably, I think it's from Dallas up. Sorry, San Jose. I know you have the same amount of points as Dallas, but I can't see San Jose keeping up with it. And maybe I'm just ignorant or not right, I guess. But I feel like Dallas up, and more conceivably probably Seattle up. I don't even know if Dallas can really conceivably challenge for the Supporter Shield. So I know my number was a lot, like it's 12 points in the East for Supporter Shield, and I'm drawing it kind of at 16 for the West, but that's because the West just beats each other up so much that like I feel like it's like you start to see kind of the cream rise to the crop. What is it? The cream rises to the top or whatever. I don't know what the saying is, Logan, but I know what I'm trying to say. They're rising to the top, these teams. And I think it's the top three in the West, St. Louis, LA, and Seattle. That's where I'm going to draw the line.
Yeah, I think you were trying to go for cream of the crop. I don't know what you're doing, but I know what you're talking about too. Something rising to the top, but now I can't think of the saying. You just confused me completely.
I nailed it. It is cream rises to the top. Apparently.
Is it really?
I just Googled
it. Oh, man.
I'm not crazy.
I'm going to give San Jose some credit here. I think it stops with them. I think that they legitimately, I mean, look at their XG. They've got a 14.3, I think, which is the highest in the league by far. I think the next closest is the Union, which is shocking. But I think they're going to score goals, and their defense is not that bad. Like, it's not horrible. So I don't know. I've got a confidence in San Jose this year for some reason. I just think that they're headed in the right direction. I think Luigi Gonzalez has a good system of play that he's just kind of implemented with San Jose. It frees up a bunch of their attacking players. I think Jeremy Abobasi was always kind of just stuck when he was with the Timbers. He just never kind of had that, I guess, that confidence instilled in him because
they never played him at the 9. They always put him at the line.
Wide or in the mid, like randomly in the midfield, kind of slot in behind a number 9 as the second number 9, maybe, or like that false 9 area, which I don't like for Jeremy. But I think, it's ultimately between him and Christian Espinoza, who's looked like an MVP this season. So I don't know. I really do like San Jose. They're young. They're exciting to watch. They're that West Coast ball where they just like to score a ton of goals. So no, I'm excited about them. Do I think they're legit? I don't think that anybody's going to get above Seattle, but I think that it would be kind of crazy to kind of leave them out for now, just because I think that they do. The one that shocks me the most, being as high as they are, is Minnesota in the West. I'm shocked that they're still that high, just because
not
of
St. Louis. Or do you mean like after we've seen
after the top 5 teams?
Okay,
with St. Louis, and just kind of talking about the top 5 teams, St. Louis, Jordan, like I think we're safe to say now that they're going to be in that top 5 conversation the rest of the season, maybe the top 3. I mean, this team's good, really good. They built this correctly. It's amazing that they built it the way they have, because it typically doesn't work as well in the first season when you're building more of a team rather than, because I feel like expansion teams could really have success, like in Austin, when you have a Sebastian Giroussi. Like, you can just throw him out there and it's like, oh, we fixed all of our problems. And they immediately vanish when you have an MVP caliber player. Klaus is really good, but he's not going to be the MVP. So I love what they've done in St. Louis.
Yeah, the only downside for St. Louis, right, is that they have those 2 losses that they have, like, LA has a game in hand. So if LA were to win that game in hand right now, that would leapfrog them to above St. Louis. And I feel like once that happens, I feel like LAFC just continues to run away with it. It's kind of the vibe again. LA is not lost. They are still the only team now that has not lost a match in the season. Also, I want to shout out Houston for being as high as they are, with 7 points. Look, you know what they're really benefiting from, I feel like, is facing the Eastern Conference teams. But I would be wrong with that, because they actually have 3 losses away from home.
Right.
And I feel like they played a few on the, like, actually went to the East. So I don't know. But Houston, 10 points, 7th place. That's pretty good. That's really good. Now, I do want to get to, real quick, the teams that have not won a game. There's 2 of them, Logan. Do you know it off the top of your head?
I would guess Sporting Kansas City.
That one's right.
Gosh, now it's between the Galaxy or Montreal. Which one hasn't won? I'm going to guess Montreal.
No, Montreal beat the Union. The only
one. That's right.
It is the LA Galaxy. Has not won a game. 7 games played, 4 losses. SKC, 5 losses, 3 draws. SKC has given up 11 goals. LA has given up 12. SKC has only still scored 2. And LA has only scored 5. Now, 2 of those, of course, came in the El Trafico, which was actually still delivered with how bad Galaxy have been. This was still a fun game where it becomes 1-1 right before the half, thanks to Tyler Boyd. And then Vela scored, Hollingshead scored, and I thought, literally, when it became 3-1, I yelled, like, damn it. I was in the kitchen doing something. And, my wife asked me, she's like, what team are you rooting for, LA or LAFC? I said, well, I hoped LA would win, and I hoped that LA would lose. And that did happen, by the way. I didn't specify which one. I said what I was really wanting. I know. I said what I was really hoping for was a close game. And when it became 3-1, I thought, this is way too early. It's 70th minute. I was like, I wanted some fun end action. Well, 84th minute, Delgado scores. It was fun for the rest of the game. Just constant, trying. The last minute had like 2 corner kicks from LA trying to get something into the box of Chicharito, and they couldn't do it. But I want to ask you, Logan, El Trafico aside, do we put a lot into this stock? Because actually, I think they performed better than I thought they would, LA Galaxy. But I saw some people saying somebody's got to be fired for this on the Galaxy's end. And I mean, I don't disagree, because they haven't won a game. But I don't think it would be because of this game. I think it's just the winning, of not playing well. Your fans are not showing up. Like, LAFC took that stadium over. Chris Klein is like totally deaf on his whole Klein out stuff. It's is mind-boggling, and I know some people are reveling in it, but really, this is going to sound dumb, maybe, but because I started watching MLS in like 2008, 2007, sorry, 2007. I have a favorite team. It's the Union, but I don't actually have a team I hate. Like, I don't have like a Yankees or a Red Steelers type of team that I hate. So I actually enjoy like most of the teams, meaning like I don't like usually like to pick favorites, or I usually watch for actual neutral. I used to never understand that when people would say like, what are the neutrals thinking? I am totally a neutral in a lot of these games. And I just kind of see the sad state that the LA Galaxy are in when they were like the once best franchise in this league, and how tone deaf their ownership is with the whole Klein out thing as well. At some point, they have to make a move. Logan, there's no way. I'm going to call it now. There's no way they make the playoffs. I know they're only 5 points off, but I can't conceivably see this team that's only scored 5 goals and has not won a game yet make the playoffs this season. It would take an epic collapse of one of these top 9 teams that I just don't see happening.
Yeah, I mean, what a sad state. I mean, and Chris Klein, we've talked about this last show. He said he'd step down if they are subpar on what the expectations were. What we don't know what those expectations and goals were, because they don't come out. It's not like he's going to come out and say, our goal is actually 6th because that's realistic. Oh,
do you know what the expectation should be for this team? MLS Cup every single year. That should be the expectation for the LA Galaxy.
Yes. And especially when you've got the very successful neighbors, the new shiny penny. Like this feels like the LA Lakers and Clippers thing all over again. And I'm sure there's fans that unfortunately like the Galaxy and the Clippers. I mean, I guess the tides have kind of changed in the last year or two.
Clippers won yesterday.
They did win. They did, and the Lakers did. So
and the Lakers did. LA's feeling good.
Yep, but I mean, look at the roster talent, Jordan. I mean, like you look at this LA Galaxy team, and their most exciting piece they've ever added was, at this point, then my coverage of the league is just Ricky Pooch. That's it. That's literally
played pretty
That's
well
all
too.
Added,
he was really great.
Right, and there's no chance that he's around much longer. Like there's going to be European clubs that gobble him up in the summer. So
he
already looking
bored,
to move.
Right? He's already bored in LA.
He's already bored of LA. I'd be bored too if I had to go to Dignity Park and lose your dignity. But no, I think that I think they should call it that, Lost Dignity Park. But yeah, no, you just look at this team, Jordan. Two of their goals out of their 5 that they scored this year have come from defenders, and Jalen Neal and Kelvin Leardam. You've got a Ricky Pooch who's a star, and by all accounts, Dejan Joveljic hasn't really figured out how to be that starting striker as Chicharito was out. Now Chicharito comes back, and the kid's liable to go off and start scoring again because he's back to kind of a reserve role in behind Chicharito. But it just seems like Greg Vanney's just circling the toilet. This club is just circling a drain. But then you go across town and you got guys like Denis Bouanga. Like, this kid came out of nowhere, just absolutely tearing up this league at 28 years old. Carlos Vela, they've always, they've had as a staple as far as that franchise is concerned. Opoku, who there's a lot of European clubs that are looking at him. Timothy Tillman, they bring him in. He's been good for them for LAFC. Ryan Hollingshead, one of the best defenders in MLS. They bring him over. Kellen Acosta, that's a fantastic MLS signing. They've done it with people internationally. Gareth Bale. They've done it with people within the domestic league, right? So Ilie Sanchez, like those are moves that the Galaxy could have made. But yet here we are talking about how bad this LA Galaxy team is. And they're not going to defend. They never have been able to defend. In the 3 years we've covered them, they've been atrocious defensively. Now they can't score.
So after some promising years, I mean, in the sense of like last year was a bit of an uptick from the year before. They made the playoffs, right? Like there was some excitement there. And this season has absolutely butchered probably any excitement. I saw friends on Twitter LA is our house, right? We had him on our show before. But somebody had posted, I forget who it was. Oh, I think it was This Week in MLS, Eli, right? Because he's a Galaxy fan, who posted, this is like the low point of a Galaxy fan, and or like the lowest point as a Galaxy fan. And then LA is our house responded with the Homer Simpson gif from the Simpsons movie. It says the lowest point so far. And that feels true.
That's
it
right.
feels true because it doesn't seem like there's any upward momentum there. Even with Chicharito, this team's got nothing. Ricky Puig, this team still has nothing to hang its hat on. And it's sad. You know, I understand if like rival fans are like basking in it, go ahead. But like as somebody that's just sitting back, I'm like, man, this team had David Beckham, it had Landon Donovan, it had Robbie Keane. They've won 5 MLS Cups.
It had Zlatan.
Yeah, they had Zlatan. You know, it's funny, Vela now has more El Trafico goals than Zlatan.
Yeah.
That's how long it still took. Zlatan hasn't been there for how long? Couple of years now.
A long time.
And somebody just now passed him for most El Trafico goals. So I
think it's like 8 years now, isn't it? It's been a long time since Zlatan's been in the league.
No, it feels like 8 years. It's probably been 3.
No way. Like I covered the league. There was no chance.
He left right before he left in 2019.
Okay.
So yeah, right before. So
COVID.
He was only here 2 years. He scored 52 goals in 56 games. Like, that is just absurd.
Can he come back? That'd be great.
I want him to. Zlatan is so much fun. Let's do it. He probably won't.
I got a question.
Can he go to LAFC?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, could he go to LAFC? That'd be great. Or like just some random club like Zava would. Like just go to like, I don't know, like Houston.
Philly.
Like let's go play with Houston. Right. No, not Philly. No, but I had a question for you. Which one's the first one the shoe to drop? Is it going to be Greg Vanney? Is it going to be Chris Klein? Or does Ricky Puig leave before those two get fired?
Chris Klein.
Chris Klein first.
He put out that statement. He has to follow through with it. And if the fans say it's not a successful season, and the fans say you haven't met their expectation at the end of the year, that trumps whatever internal expectations you have, I feel. They're being so loud about wanting you out, dude. It's like, why would you even want to stay? I feel like your ass is always on the hot seat then. Like, why not just leave? You got your money. You worked for LA. I'm sure he didn't make like super much, but I mean, probably enough to be able to. He probably set some aside and probably has some. Be able to leave. He might even be able to go to a worse team, right? They might allow that. I don't know.
Be a minority stake owner in the Dodgers like everybody else in LA.
Yeah. You know what it feels like? It feels like LAFC is the Dodgers and LA Galaxy are the Angels. That's what it feels
it's 100%. LA's got a problem over there. One sports team must always be bad. It's like at least the Chargers and that's not accurate anymore because the Rams suck now, and now the Chargers are pretty decent. So it's a lose-lose there.
There's
it is
LA balance,
right? You can't be happy in LA your whole life. There's just no chance.
No, that's it is crazy. I don't know what to say anymore about the Galaxy. So I want to move on to the other bad team in the West. So really when I was saying like maybe he could go to a worse team, there's only one team that's worse right now. It's SKC. Vermees like just signed an extension in the offseason, right? Either this year or the year before. 5-year extension. Logan, they haven't won. The excuse last year was all of their DPs were injured. They're going to come back. They're going to be better. Vermees says there's no must-win game. That seems absurd. He said there's no must-win game until the playoffs. Well, guess what? If you don't get to the playoffs, then all your games are must-win right now. And out of the no wins, right, 5 of those are still losses. 3 of those are draws. The reason they have 3 points is because of their 3 draws. They're averaging 0.38 points per game. And they got a red card in this last match here. Player out, kicks angrily. And I don't know. I just feel like the vibes are not there at all for this team. And my point being is I think he's kind of done. There you go. San Jose went out and destroyed them 3-0, right? Like I feel like he might have taken this team as far as he could go. He's been there forever. I mean, how long has he been coaching them? Since I've been watching close to the league, right? Like, he has been managing them since 2009.
Did he not manage them when they were the Wizards? At some point?
He did. Yeah, they rebranded in 2013, I think it was, or 2011.
Right.
2011.
That's how long it's been. That's insane.
Yeah,
man.
And for me, I'm looking at that and I think sometimes it's just time to go. It's not an indictment on him as a coach. I just think the message might be stale. I think I said it last week when I was trying to get every coach fired, but I think it's done. I don't feel like anything positive is happening there. Zuzi is now aging, and at some point this core that they had before is just gonna be too old. And I think that's part of the problem now is that they're aging. Their DPs were injured. They've coming back. They're still not scoring. It just doesn't seem like a good situation. I don't know. I thought they'd be better this year. I bought into that excuse. I thought Ramiz would have his team ready. I don't know if he's done. Team's done with him, or if it's just stale. I don't really know what's going on. But at this point, you can't. I don't know if you can ride out the whole season with them. I honestly don't. Now, I know they're only 5 points off of a playoff spot, but we talked about it, I think, with Montreal last week or 2 weeks. Maybe it was with SKC. How many games they've played? 8, and only have 3 points. To get another 5 points is going to take another 16 matches if they're on the same pace they are. At that point, the season's almost over, and I'm sure everyone else has already put them away. I just don't see how you can stick with this.
Yeah, and you look at their, like you said, a lot of it's the aging roster. You look at Zuzi, who's almost 37. You got Andrew Fontes, who they had to sign at 33. You go and look at Roger Espinoza, 36. Tim Melia is 36. Ben Sweat, who they cut, was 31. Johnny Russell, 33. Like, those are guys well past their time to kind of play in this league. So I tell you what, whoever takes over is going to have a mess to kind of clean up. And they're not like, well, I say this, I mean, the hell, they almost got Cristiano Ronaldo. Could you imagine if they had fleeced him and he came over and signed for this SKC team? It'd be like, good night.
Now that's a real life Zava situation. Yes. I think Ronaldo probably could have scored some goals to help them, but
right.
I don't know if it would. I don't know. Logan, I'm looking at their schedule. They play New England next. They're not winning that. They play Montreal on the 29th. They have a shot. They have a shot to win that. They have a shot to win that one. And guess what? That one.
That's a free game, isn't it? I bet you.
No, it's not. They haven't announced it yet. But their New England game.
They should pay people to watch that game.
They might. We love our bottom.
If they can figure out how to figure it out.
Battle for the bottom. We love those. Okay, so after they face Montreal, they face Seattle, Minnesota, LAFC, St. Louis, Portland, and Dallas. All right. Logan, I don't know if they're going to win a game this season. I'm looking at the schedule. This is absurd. They might not win a game. If they don't beat Montreal, there's a real shot that by June 1st, when it rolls around, that they still have not won a game.
That would be nuts. And Peter Vermees would still be there. He'd still be coaching.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh,
He's
you're
like,
doing
I
well.
got
You're
5
doing
more
well.
years on this.
This looks like fun.
And then even then, it still doesn't get easier, right? They play Vancouver, who's still in a playoff spot. They play Austin. That can go with the way Austin's playing. You never know. LAFC, again, on the 17th of June. And then they face LA Galaxy. That's a toss-up. And then they face Chicago. Chicago's been playing pretty well. That goes through June. The only win I see here that they have a real shot at is against Montreal. Now, of course, it is MLS. Anything can happen. They might go out there and they might beat New England 5-0 because some of them's that league. But I don't know. If they haven't won by the time June 1st rolls around, heads got to roll, right? Somebody has to get fired.
Yeah. Do they have a mascot they can fire? I mean, that's typically the route some of these clubs have gone. Like Gunnosaurus. I'm not sure. If
That's what the first one that came to my mind. I'm like, oh no.
He's been relieved of his duties. Like, is there an SKC wizard still out there? If there is, then he's going to suffer that fate. But I mean, all joking aside,
they have Blue the dog. That's their mascot.
Yeah, this has just got Richmond written all over him. Don't run him from the goal, Blue the dog. You never know. But yeah, no, this is really bad. I actually haven't caught up on some of the No Other Pod episodes. It'd be interesting to kind of get there. I can't imagine it's going well. I can't imagine that they're having a whole. What do you talk about at this point? Like, they don't score. So it's like, what excites you about Sporting Kansas City this year? Like, besides the barbecue? Nothing. Yeah.
Nothing. That's the
Not
problem.
Even really. Right.
I mean, at some point, I know people already bought season tickets and stuff, but I feel like at some point the people that buy tickets each week are just not going to show up, right? They're still usually showing up. They're still usually a pretty good crowd, but how long can you go where you're like, why paying $30 a seat plus fees to watch us either draw or get embarrassed? This game that they just lost was in San Jose, okay? But, they've been embarrassed at Children's Mercy Park. Seattle beat them 4-1. Otherwise, they already faced LA Galaxy earlier to a 0-0 like week 3. So that Montreal game is screaming 0-0 for me as well. So I don't know. I'm just waiting for. I got it circled May 20th, St. Louis, Kansas City, because that's going to be like a rivalry derby match of like proximity wise, and I'm waiting for St. Louis to just like batter them like 7-0 or something. I mean, and that's at City Park.
Yeah, they don't like each other. Yeah,
no, they don't. That's gonna be fun, unless if you're a SKC fan, I guess. But
yeah,
insane. Okay, so Portland smashed Seattle. I do want to talk about this before we preview the other games and stuff. But Portland, this was a shock, right? 4-1. I didn't see this coming. I don't think many people did. We didn't choose it as one of our games to watch because Portland hasn't really been as good as they used to be. And now Seattle's been cruising, and then it went the total opposite way. And it was 1-0 Seattle from Raul Ruidiaz in the 58th minute. And then in the span of 20 minutes, Asprilla scores in the 71st, then a 76th minute goal, then a 81st minute goal, and then an 89th minute goal. And Portland just buried them. And this was at Portland, of course. So I don't know how much you can away from this game, but Portland is the first team in this rivalry to win 4 in a row, which seems like a crazy stat. Like that probably would have happened before. But it is funny that it happens at a time where Portland's been way worse than Seattle has been, that the Portland has won that many in a row.
Look at their stretch of games, though. They had to win this game, which is crazy to say, but against a Seattle team. But they go away to Cincinnati and away to St. Louis. Those are really tough environments, probably two of the toughest environments to play in MLS. So, and then they get to play Austin, which is a cupcake kind of game. But, but it is. It's this season, man, it's nuts. Like it's got MLS written all over it. Like you think you've got something pinned down and you don't. Like nobody had the Revolution being this good. Nobody had a Seattle team that goes into like I didn't know if it was going to be necessarily a blowout by Seattle, but I thought Seattle would grab 3 points or maybe a point if it didn't go well. But Portland just obliterated them. I mean, it was like it wasn't even a match. Like it was nuts. The ending of that game, it just felt completely in control, and it felt like Seattle was the team scratching their head going, we just can't figure anything out right now. I don't know. I think the only thing that's been consistent this season, Jordan, is LAFC being as good as they are, and Montreal and LA Galaxy and Sporting Kansas City kind of in the places they've been. Other than that, it's been like a free-for-all. Like nobody expected St. Louis to be this good. Nobody expected Atlanta United to take this big step without the Godfather. Like it just feels like, I mean, it's just all chaos right now, and I'm loving it. I'm digging it.
And then let's quickly talk St. Louis just battered Cincinnati. This game was kind of held for a tornado warning, then a lightning in the area type thing. And then this game actually wrapped up. So I finished watching Seattle, Portland, and flip over to the Cincinnati game, not knowing, like I didn't look at the score beforehand. And I flip over and I'm like, holy crap, this game's like over too. So I got like, it's like 5-1. It was actually 5 goals in 60 minutes for Cincy. The first 60 minutes of the game, it was already 5-0. And then they pulled one back, Cincinnati did. So are we buying St. Louis? Are they back after 2 losses?
I mean, this is a really good Cincinnati team they beat. And granted, it is at home, and granted, it was in a weird situation. It's kind of like that rain delay game where you're just I think you lose focus, especially if you're the away team, and it's really easy for the home team to kind of capitalize on that. Plus, I mean, tornado warnings in St. Louis, they acted like that was out of the ordinary. It's pretty normal for St. Louis, I think. Same in Cincinnati, too. But no, I mean, this is a good Cincinnati team. I think this is a Cincinnati team that's going to have a huge question mark coming up of, like, what do they do in the attack? Because they're going to lose Brenner to Udinese, I think that's how you say it, which is the Italian club, Serie A. So Brenner's going to be gone in the summer. You got to replace that, but he's only got 1 goal this year. He looked good in the Orlando game, but other than that, I mean, Brenner hasn't been I think the player that they had last year. And I don't know if Brandon Vasquez is ever going to match what he did last year because he was so good, which, you know, if you take those two out of the equation, kind of have that step back, or if Brandon Vasquez ends up leaving, there's a gaping hole up front now. There's 2 strikers down and 2 of the top strikers in this league from last year. What does Cincinnati do to replace that? But I think, given that being said, I think St. Louis has beaten some really good teams this year, like some really good teams. So I think that, you know, this is just adding to their resume. And at this point, like you can't write this off and say, oh, they'll eventually come down. Well, they haven't shown that they're going to come back down. Like they've kind of steadied the ship. They had a couple rough weeks, but after that, I mean, they smashed Cincinnati in. So again, this is one of those statement games, man. And if they play at home, Jordan, I don't see many teams beating this team at home. Like it just doesn't feel like it's going to happen.
They need to get a home playoff game and just ride it out. The worrying thing for Cincinnati fan is that we had only given up 4 goals the whole season before this game, and then you give up 5. That is, you more than doubled the amount of goals that you'd given up all season. That sucks. And it was in 1 game. And we've had that a lot this year, where Atlanta like wasn't giving up that many goals, and then they lose like 6-1 to Columbus, and you're like, Like, I know you were missing a couple players, but why did you like give up more than you had all season in one game, right? Like, it seems like we're getting a lot of that this year, of these, especially this week where it's like 4-1, 5-1, just constant high scoring games here. So I'd be worried if I'm Cincinnati on that front, because now that puts you at a positive 1 goal differential when you were looking pretty sharp before that. So that's probably worrisome. But now, of course, you can bounce back. What I like from St. Louis is seeing them bounce back. 2 straight losses. Can they do it? They beat a Eastern team contender at home, and it wasn't 1-0. They battered them, and that's what I like to see from St. Louis, as a fact of, we were kind of wondering, how are they going to the first loss? Well, they lost again. Now you have 2. How do you respond? This can easily tailspin down, right? We kind of saw it with Austin in their rookie season when they were like top 5 for like the first 5 games, and then it just like plummeted. And it's nice to see St. Louis just kind of step up and say, no, not going anywhere right now. So that's pretty cool for St. Louis, and still no draws for them. Kind of curious to see how long it'll be until they get their first draw of the season. But they face Colorado next. I feel pretty good that they can probably beat Colorado as well. You ready to preview some matches?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's time for the Match of the Week preview.
If you can hear us after that just blew out your eardrum, this is our Match of the Week preview, where we talk about what games we pick. I do want to cover some stuff real quick, though. We have tomorrow on the 18th, we have 2 Canadian Championship games. That's Forge FC versus Laval and Montreal versus Vaughan. And Montreal hoping to at least get a win in against Vaughan. I don't even know who Vaughan is, so I guess good luck. And then wins more Canadian Championship games: Halifax versus Ottawa, York versus Vancouver, and Rovers versus Valor. Also on Wednesday, USA and Mexico take off in their friendly. It's at 10 p.m., by the way. So that sucks. But there you go. Thursday, some more Canadian Championship Pacific. And then the weekend matches start. Charlotte versus Columbus at 7:30. Charlotte had just drew at the Rapids, and then Rapids scored that goal late to seal a draw with Charlotte, who's been struggling throughout the season. They face the hot Columbus Crew. Cincinnati versus Portland. This could be a fun one, right? Portland just blew out Seattle. Cincinnati has also beat Seattle this year. This game is in Cincy. How do they respond to losing to St. Louis? Some good stuff there. Montreal versus New York at 7:30. New England versus SKC at 7:30. That one is free on Apple TV. NYCFC versus Dallas is also free. Orlando versus DC at 7:30. Philly versus Toronto at 7:30. We have Houston versus Miami at 7:30. Houston just... Are we sure they're not in the East?
They are. They're 100% of the East.
They played the Red Bulls last week. It was their first time seeing them since 2019, they said. And now they're like, we just got to have Houston face all these Eastern teams. Houston faces Miami at 8:30. Nashville versus LAFC at 8:30. Colorado and St. Louis is free at 9:30. RSL versus San Jose at 9:30. That is also free. LA and Austin at 10:30. And Seattle, Minnesota at 10:30. That one is free. And then on Sunday is Atlanta versus Chicago. That's on FS1. So Logan, I ask you, what's your match of the week pick?
I'm going to go with the Sunday match. I'm going to go Atlanta and Chicago Fire. Chicago Fire have not lost in their last 5 matches, which is really good for a Chicago Fire team that I think everybody was writing off as not being a very good team, us included. Jordan might have like some kind of bone to pick with them at some point. But I think
I don't know what you're talking about.
don't show them that. But man, we really were high on. No, I'm kidding. Chicago Fire again, sitting in that 8th spot, sitting pretty. Kai Kamara has been a revelation for this team that could not find goals, and now they can find some goals. If they defend a little bit better, I mean, this team's a legit playoff team. So that's exciting for Chicago fans, I think, because we're not expecting to be there. And they've kind of done it without Shaqiri. They've kind of done it without guys that I think Shabelko, like guys they were really counting on to really kind of contribute to this team. Haven't needed them. Kai Kamara, again, a lot of fun to watch. I love watching Kai, so anytime I can watch him play. And then Atlanta United, Ken Yakamaki score in his 5th straight game, starting in a 5th straight match at Mercedes-Benz, which I think there's a pretty high chance that he does. So I don't know. I think this could be a shootout. Like, it'd be a lot of fun. If you see like a 3-2 win, Atlanta United, but I think it's going to be a lot of goals, a lot of fun to watch. So, yeah.
It's really different when you're relying on Kai Kamara instead of like Shabelko. You know, like that is
right.
Like what about here. I think for my pick, I am going to have to go with Seattle, Minnesota. Right? West Coast bias. Here we go. Seattle near the top. Minnesota's been surprising. Minnesota's been good on the road, except for like one game. So very curious to see how they'll do. Bonus pick is Cincy Portland. Really like that matchup as well. But Montreal faces Red Bulls. I don't see Montreal getting a win there. They're still on 1 win for this season. Like Boston, that screams 0-0 to me, so I don't see LA getting a win there. And we already talked about how we don't think SKC will get a win. Oh, they've faced the Revs. I don't see them winning that. What team is off this week?
RSL? No. I know. I always like try to look at it. Just like it's like a fun game for me to see who's off.
Like, what team am I missing? Toronto?
No,
they
Toronto?
play.
No, they play. Vancouver. Yeah,
Vancouver. My bad for forgetting them.
It is fun though. It's a fun game to play. I play every week. I'm like, which team's not playing?
And then, of course, before we head out, just a quick mention that in a couple weeks we will have LAFC versus the Union MLS Cup rematch in the CONCACAF Champions League semifinals. I am absolutely expecting LAFC to just steamroll in those 2 games and put the Union out of their misery for that competition anyway. All right. Anything else before we jet out of here?
I don't think so. I think we Daryl DK Achilles injury. That's not good. U.S. men's national team when they do play Mexico.
Eric Williamson got injured.
Yeah, it will not be a strong a group playing. So should be interesting. I
can't even get up for this game, honestly.
Nah, me either.
Like I'm not very excited for it. It's less friendly.
Serginho will be there. That'll be it. No offense to everybody else, but
I don't know. Yeah, that's not a good sign for Dest, by the way, that Milan's like, sure, take him in the middle of the season.
You take him. We don't need him.
Not a good sign at all.
No. It looks like the Leeds United States of America is going to be in the Premier League next year. Maybe. So
they just lost 6-1. I don't think they're going to be in the Premier League.
I think they'll be fine.
They're going to be Leeds United States of America USL level. They're going to be in the championship.
They really got demoted.
Yeah, all the way to the USL championship. Speaking of the pyramid and all that, I went on. I have my closed pyramid. Yeah, we did talk a little bit about that at the end, the Champions League. But yeah, the Union were able to. They played like their old selves enough to get a result away from home. And LAFC just battered Vancouver. Not much to talk about with that. But I did talk lower league soccer on our show called The Closed Pyramid. You can find that video on our YouTube. You can find it on our podcast feed. And I gave a little bit of a rant, Logan, about the production quality of some of these USL streams on ESPN+. So if anybody wants to check that out, you can do that. I think we're recording Ted Lasso soon, and then guess what? A new episode of Ted Lasso is dropping. So we'll be talking about that soon, as well, as we are almost halfway through the season for that. And then, of course, we'll be back here Monday-ish, depending on how things go, right? Monday or Tuesday. We usually record this show, and we go live, so you can catch us then as well. But other than that, we are wrapping it up. I hope everyone has a great rest of their week. We'll catch you next time. And, hope all is well.